We turn now to U.S. immigration policy and the agency tasked with enforcing this country's laws, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE. Acting ICE Director Thomas Homan has served under 6 U.S. presidents. His 30-plus years in immigration enforcement will come to an end when he retires at the end of next month. Thomas Homan, welcome to the NewsHour.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So your first job was as a border agent. You're familiar with this subject personally. I want to start with a mission of ICE and to ask whether under President Trump it's fair to say that it's no longer going after mainly those immigrants who've committed serious crimes, but going after immigrants who are here without documentation, regardless of age, whether they're parents, whether they hold down a job or what. Is that accurate?
No, that is not accurate. I looked at the numbers just today. 9 out of 10 aliens we arrested, we got through the criminal justice system.
And what % of those are violent crimes?
I don't have that number with me, but again, we got to remember though, I enforce immigration law. There's no prerequisite that an illegal alien has to commit a criminal violation on top of entering the country illegally, which is a crime.
But so I want to ask you about incidents like this one. I know you're familiar with this. This was an incident in Los Angeles last year. A man whose job was making tacos. He was arrested. He was taking his 2 daughters to school. The 14-year-old daughter recorded this video on her cell phone. Here's what she recorded.
Don't cry, honey. Don't cry. You have to be strong.
So this was recorded, as we said, when her father was picked up. I think the question that a number of people have is, how does it make the country safer to have? This is a man who was in the country without documents, that's true, had a DUI record from 10 years previously. But does it make the country safer to pick up people who have children?
Absolutely. I mean, bad people have children. DUI, people might think it's a serious crime, but 10,000 people, over 10,000 people a year die from DUI. Now look, I see this all the time. I've been doing this 33 years. I see a lot of things that are sad. And I've said many times, I feel bad for the plight of some of these folks, but I have a job to do. If the message we want to keep sending to the rest of the world is, it's okay to enter this country illegally and violate the laws of this country, as long as you successfully hide out for 10 years, as long as you have a U.S. citizen child while you're here illegally and hide out, now you're immune from law enforcement. Now you're immune from the laws of this country. If that's the message we want to continue sending, we're never going to fix the illegal immigration crisis.
All this is added up, I think, what you're saying, and the message coming out from the Trump administration, including from the president himself, has created, I think it's fair to say, a charged atmosphere in immigrant communities around this country. Even at places that were considered safe, like courthouses, where immigrants go to check in regularly. Just last month in Tennessee, there was a meatpacking plant. Almost 100 employees were rounded up. The next day, for example, at school, hundreds of school children didn't go to class because of what had happened. Is this the climate, a climate of fear that ICE seeks to perpetrate around the country?
Look, we're a sovereign country. We have a right to protect our borders. We have a right to enforce the law. Let's talk about courthouses real quick. Why is it bad for a federal law enforcement officer to arrest a criminal inside of a courthouse, a criminal courthouse? Okay. They're behind a wire, which means we know they don't have weapons because they went to security checkpoint. It's much safer for my officers, much safer for that person if we arrest them in a criminal courthouse. Now, I've been in courthouses where I watched judges ordered a father arrested because he didn't pay child support. That's okay. But a federal law enforcement officer who's sworn to enforce immigration law can't arrest a criminal inside a criminal courthouse. That's exactly what we should be arresting them. And we don't target victims or witnesses in the court. We don't arrest them in the courtrooms. We arrest them in a non-public area. We work with the court personnel. As far as the work site, illegal employment is a magnet to illegal immigration. And as long as folks that come in this country get a job illegally, they're going to keep coming. We got to remove that magnet. There's laws on that too. And I want to make one thing clear, because this is a constant question I get. People that employ illegal aliens are not doing it out of the goodness of their heart. They're paying them less wages. Many times they take advantage of them, and they work them very hard for a little bit of money. It's an unfair advantage to their competitors. It is unfair. Many of these workers steal Social Security numbers, U.S. citizens. I mean, there's tax fraud. There is people losing their identity, Social Security
But in the
numbers being
case of
misused.
this meat packing plant, my understanding is the owners were not charged with any, were not charged.
That's a criminal investigation. I can't comment on that, but I can tell you that that investigation involved more than just illegal alien hiring.
There's another set of statistics that we've looked at. Studies looked at large cities with higher immigrant populations. They found the crime rate in these places remained stable or even fell. There's separate studies showing communities with more undocumented, with a growing number of undocumented immigrants, equates often with a decrease in violent crime. Do you see those studies, those statistics as well?
No, I don't. And they obviously aren't counting immigration crime. Entering this country illegally is a crime. If you're in this country illegally, you committed a crime by entering this country illegally. So let's remember, and that is a crime, federal crime. But the question to ask isn't so much, like I get asked all the time, do illegal aliens commit more crimes than U.S. citizens? That's not the question. The question is, every crime committed by illegal alien is a preventable crime. They should not have happened because they should not have been here. So we can prevent a lot of crimes by making sure we fix the immigration system. And look, I'm all for, the system needs to be fixed. I'm the first one to agree to that. But we just can't ignore it. For Congress to say under the last president, well, ignore this piece of the law, ignore that piece of law, don't prioritize this. That's not the way a law enforcement agency should operate. Should operate, if the law doesn't work, then fix the law. Don't ask a law enforcement officer to ignore it. No one asked the FBI to ignore their job. No one asked the DEA to do their job. We're no different.
This is not directly under your jurisdiction, Director Homan, but it is part of how the Trump administration is choosing to enforce the law. It is now separating children from their parents by the hundreds, more than 700 since last October. We're told more than 100 children under the age of 4. Even conservatives, Congressman Mark Meadows, have been saying families should be kept together. American Association of Pediatrics is saying it hurts these children, these vulnerable children, to take them away. How do you explain that approach, that policy?
The message has been muddied. Apparently, these people don't understand what exactly is happening. If people really have a fear of persecution in their homeland, they want to file for asylum claims, they come to a port of entry, present themselves, which law says they have a right to file for asylum, but come to the port of entry, present yourself, make your claim. You're still going to get the same judicial process, but do it through the legal channels. Don't enter between the port of entries. If they really are escaping fear and persecution, looking for relief in this country, why not come to a port of entry and turn yourself over to a law enforcement officer, say, I want to file for asylum, and you get to file asylum. You're not taking your child across the river. You're not taking them through a canyon where that child can be hurt or they could be hurt. Do it the safe way. This isn't just about enforcing law. See, that's the message that doesn't get out. This is about saving lives and protecting these immigrants, too.
But again, American Academy of Pediatrics, 66,000 pediatricians, we urge policymakers to be mindful. These are vulnerable, scared children. To separate them from their families, harsh and counterproductive.
Children get separated from parents every day in this country when their parents are arrested for criminal violations. Again, I've arrested fathers for domestic violence, background police officer. I separated that father and that child. It's unfortunate, it's sad, but the child certainly can't go to a county lockup with a father. A child can't go to U.S. Marshal's custody with the parents being charged with a crime or entering the country illegally. Again, we have made it clear, we've done numerous news broadcasts. You have a right to claim asylum in this country, but go to a port of entry, present yourself, you get the same protections, but you're not violating the law.
The Secretary of Homeland Security, Kirstjen Nielsen, there's been a lot of reporting about disagreements between her and President Trump, whether she's planning to leave. Do you know anything about that?
No, Kirstjen Nielsen is, she's a good secretary. She's stepping up to the plate. She has a tough job. Immigration enforcement is a very controversial, very emotional issue, and it's been in the entire 34 years I've been doing this. But she's a good secretary, she's doing a good job, and I support her 100%.
Tom Homan, the Director of the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency, thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.